The math was simple. One grieving widower plus two professional manipulators equals pouring olive oil straight down the drain. Or so they thought. What Katarina and her delightful daughter didn't realize is that I didn't build a seven-figure import business by being a pushover. I just played one at home for 2 years, letting them think business success meant I was soft when it came to family matters. But when their house of cards finally collapsed, I was ready with the perfect response, and it involved a party, a bill, and the sweetest taste of justice you can imagine. Here's how a successful businessman got completely played by a woman at a wine exhibition. The wine exhibition trap. Picture this: successful businessman walks into wine exhibition, walks out with a financial parasite attached to his wallet. That businessman was me, and I should have seen it coming from orbit. But when a woman who looks like she stepped off a magazine cover starts asking intelligent questions about your Asiatico selection, logic takes a backseat to testosterone. The Athens International Wine Exhibition, October 2018. I'm manning my booth showcasing premium selections from Santorini and Nemea when she appears. Katarina Dimitriou, marketing director for a luxury hotel chain, 35 years old, auburn hair, green eyes like a wine-soaked hypnotist. She knew exactly which wines to compliment, exactly how to lean over the tasting counter to make sure I noticed her assets weren't limited to her professional expertise. We talked for 3 hours, but the hook came within the first 60 minutes. Red flag number 1 disguised as vulnerability. She mentioned her recent divorce, financial struggles, starting over in Thessaloniki. The way she said it with this slight tremble in her voice and downcast eyes made me want to protect her. What a knight in shining armor I was, ready to rescue a damsel in distress. Except the damsel was actually a piranha in designer clothing. She invited me to dinner that weekend, cooked an incredible meal at her apartment, pasticcio that would make your grandmother weep, paired with a bottle of my own robola that she'd apparently purchased after our meeting. During dinner she casually mentioned how much better her daughter would do with a stable father figure, how the girl needed structure and security. What she didn't mention was that the private school tuition I'd eventually pay would run 25,000 euros annually. Then came the bedroom performance that should have won her an Academy Award. This woman knew exactly what buttons to push, exactly how to make me forget my own name, let alone any lingering doubts about her motives. She had moves that would make a professional jealous and the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely couldn't get enough. Every time my business brain tried to analyze the situation rationally, she'd deploy some technique that short-circuited my thinking entirely. 8 months of this treatment. 8 months of elaborate home-cooked meals, always accompanied by strategic mentions of her exhaustion from working 2 jobs, her worries about affording her daughter's future. 8 months of mind-blowing intimacy that got more intense whenever I seemed hesitant about taking the next step. She never directly asked for money or commitment. She was too smart for that. Instead, she'd paint pictures of financial stress while making me feel like the luckiest man alive. I met the daughter exactly once during our dating period. 15-year-old Stavrula, though Katarina called her Stella. Sullen teenager who barely acknowledged my existence, which honestly seemed normal for the age. She spent the entire dinner staring at her phone, responding to her mother's questions with grunts and eye rolls. Red flag number 2, but I dismissed it as typical adolescent behavior. Besides, I was too busy being mesmerized by her mother to pay much attention to family dynamics. The marriage proposal came from me naturally. Katarina had played her cards perfectly, making me feel like I'd found my intellectual equal wrapped in a package that made my brain misfire. She wanted the wedding in Santorini. Romantic, she said. Meaningful, since that's where my best wines originated. Also expensive as hell, but she deserved the best, right? 55,000 euros for a wedding that looked like a Hollywood production. 200 guests on her side, mostly relatives and friends I'd never met. 23 people on mine, including my business partner and a handful of cousins. Should have been a massive warning sign that her guest list was 10 times longer than mine, but I was too intoxicated by the fairy tale romance to notice the numbers didn't add up. The reception went until 3 in the morning. Open bar featuring my premium wine selections, 5-course meal prepared by celebrity chef she'd somehow connected with, live band that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everyone kept congratulating me on finding such an amazing woman. Her family treated me like their personal savior, thanking me repeatedly for making Katarina so happy, for giving her the stability she deserved. Looking back with clear eyes, the whole thing was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. She'd identified a successful but lonely businessman, researched his interests and industry, then engineered a chance meeting that felt completely natural. She'd weaponized vulnerability to trigger my protective instincts, used incredible physical chemistry to override logical thinking, and gradually escalated commitment without ever seeming pushy or desperate. The honeymoon in Mykonos should have been perfect. 5-star resort, private beach, endless champagne. But even then, subtle changes were beginning. She seemed less interested in physical connection, more focused on discussing our future finances, how we'd handle household expenses, whether I'd considered adding her to my business accounts for convenience. Small conversations that didn't seem significant at the time but were actually her testing the waters for what came next. By the time we returned to Thessaloniki, I was completely hooked, convinced I'd married my soulmate, ready to build a life with this incredible woman and her teenage daughter. I'd gone from confirmed bachelor to family man in less than a year, and it felt like the natural progression of finding true love. What I didn't realize was that the woman I'd fallen for was about to disappear completely. The post-wedding personality switch. 2 months after the wedding, someone flipped a switch and my wife became a different person. I'm talking about a complete personality transplant, like a wine bottle corked until someone popped the seal and never let it breathe again. The woman who couldn't keep her hands off me during our courtship suddenly developed an allergy to physical contact that would make a nun proud. The transformation happened so fast it gave me whiplash. We went from daily intimacy to maybe once a month if I was lucky. The excuses started flowing like water from a broken dam. Too tired from work, stressed about a hotel marketing campaign, worried about Stella hearing us through the walls even though our bedroom was on the opposite side of the house from hers. The migraine excuse became her masterpiece. One evening, right after I'd paid 2,500 euros for Stella's therapy sessions, Katarina developed a room-darkening migraine that required complete isolation and zero physical contact. These weren't your garden-variety headaches either. These were debilitating, please don't breathe too loudly migraines that coincidentally struck every time I showed the slightest romantic interest, but somehow didn't interfere with her ability to go shopping or meet friends for lunch. The work exhaustion excuse was equally creative. Suddenly her job at the hotel chain became the most demanding position in Greek hospitality. She'd come home claiming to be mentally and physically drained from dealing with difficult clients and demanding bosses. Too exhausted for conversation, too depleted for affection, but mysteriously energized enough to spend hours on the phone with her sister discussing everyone else's personal business. And when intimacy did happen, the enthusiasm level matched that of someone fulfilling a court-ordered community service requirement. She'd lie there with all the passion of a dead fish, checking her phone over my shoulder, making grocery lists in her head. The woman who used to attack me like I was the last piece of baklava at a Greek wedding now treated physical contact like an unpleasant medical procedure she had to endure. The shift was so dramatic it felt like I'd married one woman and woken up with her emotionally distant twin sister. The passionate girlfriend who used to greet me at the door wearing nothing but an apron had been replaced by a roommate who barely acknowledged my existence. She developed this talent for being physically present but emotionally absent, like she was performing the role of wife without actually feeling any of the emotions that should come with it. I found myself lying awake in a bedroom I couldn't leave, feeling lonelier than I'd ever been as a bachelor. Here I was, married to a beautiful woman, living in my own house and feeling like a stranger in my own life. The isolation was suffocating. At least when I was single, I knew where I stood. Now I was trapped in this performance where I played the role of devoted husband while she played the role of reluctant wife. The beautiful, attentive woman who used to hang on my every word about wine terroir and shipping logistics now responded to my attempts at conversation with grunts and one-word answers. She developed selective hearing that filtered out anything resembling romantic interest, but somehow remained perfectly tuned to discussions about household expenses and Stella's mounting financial needs. I started feeling like a walking ATM who occasionally got sexual privileges if I'd been particularly generous with my credit card. The correlation became impossible to ignore. Big purchase for Stella's education. Suddenly Katarina's migraines would mysteriously improve for exactly one evening. Expensive family vacation to Crete. Brief return of physical affection that lasted precisely until the credit card bill arrived. The woman who used to cook elaborate dinners while wearing sexy outfits now served reheated takeout while dressed like she was heading to a convent. Romance died such a quick death I should have held a funeral service. Candlelit dinners became rushed meals eaten while she scrolled through her phone. Weekend getaways became solo trips for her to visit family, always conveniently timed when I'd suggested we spend quality time together. The worst part was the gaslighting. When I'd try to discuss the changes in our relationship, she'd act confused and hurt. What changes? She was just tired, stressed, adjusting to married life. I was being unreasonable, expecting too much, not understanding the pressures she faced as a working mother. Somehow my completely rational desire for physical and emotional connection with my wife had become evidence of my selfishness and insensitivity. I started questioning my own memory. Had she really been that affectionate before the wedding, or was I romanticizing the past? Was this normal married life, or had I been systematically deceived by someone who knew exactly which buttons to push and when to stop pushing them? The answer became crystal clear when I realized the timing wasn't coincidental. The intimacy hadn't gradually decreased as we settled into married life. It had stopped abruptly exactly when she'd secured what she wanted: legal access to my finances and a permanent provider for her daughter. The passionate girlfriend had been a performance, and the show had ended the moment the marriage certificate was signed. I'd been played by a master manipulator who understood that men think with their hormones and make terrible decisions when their blood supply gets redirected away from their brains. She'd weaponized physical chemistry to override my business instincts, then withdrew it once she'd achieved her objective. The bait-and switch had been executed with the precision of a military operation. But if I thought Katarina's personality switch was jarring, I was about to discover that her daughter had been taking notes. Satan's spawn unleashed. Stella had timing that would make a Swiss watch jealous. She'd wait until I was on crucial business calls with suppliers in Crete or distributors in Germany, then burst into my home office like she was announcing the second coming. Music would start blasting from her phone at volumes that could wake the dead in 3 different time zones. Not just any music either, the kind of aggressive rap that makes your ears bleed and your soul question humanity's future. When I'd motion frantically for her to leave, she'd pretend not to see me, dancing around like she was auditioning for a music video while my German clients wondered if I was running a nightclub instead of an import business. Her artistic talents extended to property destruction with surgical precision. Stella developed this amazing ability to accidentally spill red wine on expensive equipment like a trained assassin. My laptop got baptized in Agurgitico during a video conference with potential investors, turning a €15,000 machine into a very expensive paperweight. The coordination required to time these accidents perfectly with my most important business moments suggested this wasn't random teenage rebellion, this was calculated psychological warfare. The theft started small and escalated like a pyramid scheme run by kleptomaniacs. €20 would disappear from my wallet, then 50, then entire credit cards would go missing for mysterious shopping expeditions. But those petty crimes were just the warm-up act for what I'd later discover. Rolexes worth €80,000, jewelry, electronics, anything valuable that could be quietly liquidated, while I remained oblivious to the systematic looting of my own home. When confronted about missing money, Stella had mastered the art of fake confusion mixed with righteous indignation. She'd claim I'd promised her the cash for school supplies or emergency lunch funds, then manufacture tears that would make professional actresses jealous. These weren't just regular tears either. We're talking about full-body sobs complete with hyperventilation and accusations that I was calling her a liar. The crocodile tears were always her exit strategy. The moment I'd start demanding accountability for destroyed property or missing money, the waterworks would start flowing and she'd run to mommy for protection like I was some kind of child-abusing monster. Katarina's response became so predictable I could have set my watch by it. She's traumatized from the divorce. You need to be patient, you're the adult here. Every single time, like she was reading from a script written by Enablers Anonymous. According to Katarina's twisted logic, my desire to live peacefully in my own home made me the villain in this story. Expecting basic respect from a 20-year-old I was financially supporting apparently marked me as an unreasonable tyrant who didn't understand childhood trauma. The fact that I'd never laid a hand on the kid, never even raised my voice until the theft started, somehow got lost in Katarina's narrative about my lack of patience and understanding. The girl had developed diplomatic immunity within my own house. She could destroy property, steal money, disrupt business calls, and create general mayhem, then retreat behind her mother's protective shield whenever consequences appeared on the horizon. I felt like I was housing a teenage terrorist who'd been granted asylum by my own wife. Living with Stella was like sharing space with a sociopath who'd studied my daily routine and designed specific tortures for maximum psychological impact. She knew exactly when to blast music, exactly which equipment to target for destruction, exactly how much money to steal without triggering a full investigation. This wasn't random teenage rebellion, this was calculated psychological warfare designed to make me miserable in my own home. The gaslighting reached Olympic-level proportions when Katarina started suggesting that my inability to bond with Stella proved I wasn't ready for family life. My requests for basic respect and property protection became evidence of my immaturity and selfishness. Somehow the victim of theft and vandalism had become the perpetrator of family dysfunction, because I refused to embrace my role as a human punching bag with a credit card attached. The coordination between mother and daughter became impossible to ignore. Stella would create chaos, Katarina would provide cover, and I'd be left feeling like the unreasonable adult who couldn't handle normal family dynamics. They'd perfected a tag-team approach to manipulation that would make professional wrestlers jealous. Every attempt to set boundaries or demand respect got twisted into evidence of my failure as a stepfather and husband. I wasn't just financing Stella's education and lifestyle. I was funding my own psychological torture while being told I should be grateful for the privilege. The girl who couldn't be bothered to acknowledge my existence before the wedding had discovered that destroying my peace of mind was both profitable and consequence-free. The realization hit me like a cargo ship to the face. This wasn't accidental teenage rebellion or divorce trauma. This was a coordinated campaign designed to break me down mentally while extracting maximum financial benefit. Mother and daughter had turned psychological warfare into a family business, and I was both the target and the primary investor. But what I didn't realize yet was that these daily torments were just the surface level of their operation. The real financial hemorrhaging was happening in plain sight, disguised as investments in Stella's future, and the numbers were about to make my head spin. The walking ATM years. 25,000 euros annually for Stella to attend Anatolia College, one of Greece's most prestigious private schools. 25,000 euros for her to fail half her classes and spend the other half planning new ways to make my life miserable. I was essentially funding the most expensive underachievement program in Thessaloniki, while she treated education like an optional hobby that interfered with her real passion of making me suffer. I was paying 15 euros per insult and getting zero return on affection. Other people paid for entertainment, spa treatments, or luxury vacations. I was paying five-figure sums to live with someone who treated me like something scraped off the bottom of her designer shoes. But wait, there's more. Katarina insisted Stella needed therapy to deal with her divorce trauma. 14,400 euros annually for Stella to spend an hour complaining about how terrible I was to a professional who nodded sympathetically and collected my money. The irony was delicious in the most bitter way possible. I was literally funding sessions where she'd march into that therapy office and spend 60 minutes explaining to Dr. Papadopoulos how unreasonable, mean, and psychologically damaging her stepfather was. Stella's wardrobe costs rivaled those of minor celebrities. Designer jeans that cost more than most people's monthly rent, shoes that required their own insurance policy, handbags that came with authentication certificates. She needed the latest iPhone every 6 months because apparently her ability to terrorize me digitally required cutting-edge technology. Each shopping expedition felt like financing a small country's GDP, while she treated me like her personal ATM with legs. The summer trips to Mykonos with her friends became annual financial massacres. Not just plane tickets and hotels, but spending money for restaurants, clubs, shopping, and whatever other luxury experiences 16-year-olds consider essential for their psychological development. I'd receive credit card bills that looked like small business quarterly earnings. Also, Stella could Instagram photos of herself living the high life, while I worked 14-hour days to fund her lifestyle. Every expense came disguised as an investment in her future. The private school tuition wasn't just education, it was ensuring her success in life. The therapy wasn't just complaining about me, it was processing childhood trauma. The designer clothes weren't just vanity, they were building her self-esteem. The technology wasn't just gadgets, it was preparing her for the digital economy. Even her trips weren't just vacations, they were broadening her cultural horizons and building independence. The manipulation was so sophisticated it almost deserved admiration. They'd identified every possible way to extract money from me while making me feel guilty for questioning the expenses. Refused to pay for something, and suddenly I was the cruel stepfather who didn't care about her well-being. Ask for accountability regarding her grades or behavior, and I became the unreasonable adult who didn't understand childhood development. Express frustration about the constant financial drain, and I was the selfish businessman who prioritized money over family. I started calculating the cost per benefit ratio like I was analyzing a business investment. 25,000 for education that produced failing grades, 14,000 for therapy that increased her hostility toward me, thousands more for clothing, technology, and experiences that generated zero gratitude or respect. The return on investment was so negative it defied basic economic principles. The pattern became crystal clear once I started tracking expenses. Every major financial outlay for Stella's benefit was followed by escalated psychological warfare against me. Pay for private school, get blasted music during business calls. Fund therapy sessions, receive increased theft and property damage. Buy expensive clothes, endure more sophisticated insults about my appearance and personality. I was literally paying her to hate me more creatively. Katarina had turned guilt into a financial weapon with surgical precision. Any hesitation about opening my wallet triggered lectures about my responsibilities as a stepfather, my obligation to provide stability, my failure to understand the lasting impact of divorce on children. She'd weaponized every parenting book and psychology article ever written to make me feel like questioning expenses meant questioning my commitment to family. The most frustrating part was watching Stella's friends benefit from my generosity while she treated me like hired help. They'd raid my refrigerator, use my Wi-Fi, lounge around my pool, all while she regaled them with stories about how awful I was to live with. I was funding social gatherings where the main entertainment was mocking the guy paying for everything. I felt like a human credit card with no spending limit and absolutely zero fraud protection. Every day brought new opportunities for them to discover creative ways to separate me from my money while making me feel guilty for earning it in the first place. The psychological manipulation was so complete that I'd started apologizing for working late to afford their lifestyle demands. The breaking point came when I realized they'd turned my own generosity into evidence of my inadequacy. Not spending enough money proved I didn't care about family. Spending too much money proved I was trying to buy affection instead of earning it naturally. There was literally no amount of financial support that would satisfy them because the goal wasn't my money, it was my complete psychological and financial surrender. My bank account was hemorrhaging money while my self-respect circled the drain, and somehow I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of financing my own misery. But as expensive as Stella's education and therapy bills were becoming, I was about to discover that Katarina had her own creative ideas about how to spend my hard-earned money. Year 3 of my marriage brought exciting new developments in Katarina's career. Suddenly, her job at the hotel chain required extensive late-night entertainment of important clients from Dubai and Russia, wealthy businessmen who apparently needed personal attention until 2 or 3 in the morning. The hospitality industry had become remarkably demanding, requiring my wife to provide round-the-clock service to these discerning gentlemen who obviously couldn't enjoy their Greek vacation without her dedicated assistance. I understood perfectly what kind of entertainment the hotel business required, but Katarina maintained her professional innocence with the dedication of a method actress, always returning home with detailed stories about business negotiations and cultural exchange programs. She'd provide receipts and have colleagues vouch for her whereabouts, creating an alibi system that could withstand casual inspection. Her monthly girls' trips started around the same time. Mykonos with her college friends, Crete with her work colleagues, Athens with her sister and cousins. Always the same pattern: luxury hotels, beachside clubs, expensive restaurants, premium shopping. Girls need their bonding time, right? Especially hardworking hotel executives who spend their weeks entertaining demanding international clientele. Financial logistics worked out perfectly. I'd pay for these rejuvenating getaways while she recovered from her exhausting schedule of late-night client entertainment. She'd return from Mykonos looking refreshed and energized, practically glowing with the healthy satisfaction of someone who'd spent quality time reconnecting with female friendships. The Greek islands apparently had amazing therapeutic properties for overworked marketing directors. Katarina developed this interesting habit of coming home simultaneously exhausted and refreshed, tired enough to avoid any physical contact with her husband, but energized enough to spend hours on phone calls discussing her wonderful experiences with mysterious friends I'd never met. She collapsed dramatically on the couch, claiming complete physical and emotional depletion, then perk up remarkably when describing the incredible massages and spa treatments she'd enjoy. The lingerie situation became particularly fascinating from a market research perspective. Her drawer was full of unworn designer pieces I'd never seen her model at home. Beautiful items that seemed designed for special occasions she apparently never had with me. Designer selections that required considerable investment but somehow never made appearances during our monthly intimate encounters. Every suspicious detail came with perfectly reasonable explanations backed by documentation that would impress forensic accountants. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, airline confirmations, even photos with her female companions. Her colleagues would vouch for her whereabouts, her friends would confirm their shared experiences, her family would validate her need for regular breaks from married life. I found myself functioning as an unpaid travel agent for my wife's professional development and personal wellness programs, booking flights for her career advancement opportunities, funding accommodations for her mental health maintenance trips, financing meals and entertainment for her essential female friendship preservation activities. The Greek tourism industry was clearly benefiting from my generous investment in my wife's professional growth. The irony was so perfect it almost felt scripted by comedy writers. Every euro I earned importing premium wine and olive oil was being converted into luxury experiences for my wife to enjoy without me. I was essentially operating a personal travel fund dedicated to enabling her increasingly frequent absences from our marriage. The harder I worked to build our financial security, the more resources she had available for her solo adventures. My business success had created the perfect financial foundation for Katarina's expanding social calendar and professional obligations. She never had to worry about affording her monthly girls' trips or late-night client entertainment expenses, because her dedicated husband was handling all the boring financial responsibilities at home. While I managed import logistics and distribution networks, she managed her growing collection of international business contacts. The mathematics were straightforward and depressing. Calculate the annual cost of her monthly getaways, add the expenses for her late-night professional entertainment activities, factor in the premium lingerie investment and luxury wellness treatments, and I was operating a private funding program for experiences that somehow never included her husband. I'd become a silent financial partner in my wife's increasingly active social life. The pattern continued for months without variation. Katarina would announce another essential girls' trip or important client entertainment obligation. I'd provide the necessary funding. She'd return refreshed and glowing with satisfaction from her rejuvenating experiences. Meanwhile, our marriage continued its steady decline into roommate territory, while her external relationships apparently flourished with remarkable vitality. Eventually, even my business-focused brain started recognizing the correlation between my financial generosity and my wife's increasing emotional distance. The more money I invested in her professional development and personal wellness activities, the less interested she became in developing our marriage or investing in our personal relationship. Something was fundamentally wrong with this equation, but the evidence was carefully curated to maintain plausible deniability. The breaking point came when I realized I'd been subsidizing my own humiliation for years. Every credit card payment, every travel expense, every luxury accommodation had been funding my wife's secret life while she gradually withdrew from our marriage. I'd been playing the role of supportive husband while unknowingly financing the systematic destruction of our relationship. My business instincts finally overrode my emotional denial. When you suspect your investment is failing, you conduct due diligence. When you think your partner is stealing from the company, you investigate. When your wife's behavior doesn't match her explanations, you hire professionals to uncover the truth. The private investigator's goldmine. Best 5,000 euros I've ever spent. Better return on investment than my most profitable wine imports, more satisfying than any business deal I'd ever closed. While Katarina was busy getting her cardio workout with her personal trainer, I was getting my own kind of exercise, building a case that would destroy her fantasy world permanently. The investigator I hired wasn't some sketchy character from a detective novel. Professional, discreet, expensive as hell, and worth every single euro. 3 weeks of surveillance, and this guy delivered a masterpiece of documentation that read like a cheating wife's greatest hits album. Photos, timestamps, locations, license plate numbers, even audio recordings of phone conversations that would make a soap opera writer jealous.